people consider it to be violent or uncivil or, I don't know, untoward or whatever, to point out that the AHCA, by nature of its provisions, we know from the CBO report that it's essentially going to kill tens of thousands of people every year, lead to the deaths of tens of thousands of people every year, and that it's it's eugenics. The AHCA is eugenics. I mean, to be fair, ACA is eugenics as well, right? But like any sort of political system that is based on capitalism is going to have some eugenicist leanings towards it. But the ACA is a brutal bill, but simply pointing that out seems to be like persona non grata. Like that very simple statement, like this bill is going to kill a bunch of people. Like that's viewed as violent rhetoric. But I know you want to get in there, John.
Well, it's just like you mentioned. I mean, the ACA was no different. And what I see, being the leftist that I am and being the angry leftist, and feeling like the Democratic Party is the one that's standing in my way of any real change politically, because of the fact that it's first the Democrats, because we have to get them on board with single payer, then we can work towards the Republican Party. But pointing out that the AC killed versus single payer or anything along those lines, and automatically they start going into discourse policing, where it's a matter of you're not being polite, so we're no longer going to view your point. And it's awful. And it's the worst part of politics that I can think of in America.
Well, discourse policing, like this idea of tone policing, and we talked about this on the show on Tuesday, or maybe Monday with Michael. It's like that is such a pathology of the center that doesn't exist in any other part of the spectrum. It's like people pretend like that's like that sort of, I guess they call them snowflakes, right? That sort of obsession with language and respectability as it comes to language is a general thing on the left. It really isn't. It just simply is not like that. Like that's the pathology of the center. Like the caring about tone and dismissing your, or rather the desire to dismiss your argument if your tone is off or if you don't use the right words. It's like, and that's just respectability politics by another name. That's just okay. Well, I was going to listen to your point about this bill killing 28 million people, but because you actually, you seem to be very upset and very aggressive about it, I guess we just have to kill 28 million people. No one.
I'm laughing because that's literally the mindset of so many people.
It's not the mindset. It's the excuse. It's an excuse.
I feel like it has to be a mindset, because nobody in their right mind would sit there and be like, I don't like how you're talking to me. I'm gonna let 22 million people die. Like,
but it's not a matter of like them saying internally, like I'm gonna let these people die. It's more along the lines of, well, I don't have to listen to your point because you said the word fuck. Or you called me a monster, so I don't have to listen to your point. And it's like, no.
I get that. I'm just to Brandon's particular point, that's the thing. The AHCA is bad, and they don't like the way you're talking. That 22 people can die then. See if I care. Like, how petty can you be?
Yeah. I mean, I could be that petty, but I don't value human life. I just find it weird when people say they do value human life, and they're like, "Oh, well, I don't really, I don't care if 28 million people die." And it's just like because they're not conceptualizing that way. They're conceptualizing the ACA as some sort of like bargain that had to be struck when it really didn't.
Right. And I mean, like Bruning did that wonderful chart that he put out that shows that the AHCA over the next 10 years, based on average deaths per year of people who are uninsured, is going to kill 626,000 people. Meanwhile, the ACA itself is going to kill 400 and something thousand people. And it's like, okay, great. Which one's a morally superior argument? I guess you can make the kind of equivalence, argument that the ACA is morally superior, but it ain't by much. And anyone who's taking that high ground and using that language of stepping stone is saying basically, I'm okay with 400 and something thousand people dying.
Oh yeah, because a lot of people are. Like a lot of, yeah. I want to point out something in the actual AHCA real quick that I just was reading about. That provision where if you don't have, if you don't have healthcare for 2 months or something like that, you can't reapply for healthcare for another half a year, even if you're desperately ill and absolutely need health insurance. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, not only are you going to uninsure more people, which we just need to move to single payer and be done with it, but then if somebody has a catastrophic life event so that way they can't afford health insurance, you're going to penalize them even further? Like,
I
don't.
Well, yeah, it's just
it's
about
social
taking money
norm.
away from certain people and giving it to other people. It has nothing to do with healthcare other than taking away services. Yeah, but go ahead, Brandon.
But there's people that are arguing for it. There are poor people arguing for this, and
and the Democrats are like, well, I mean, these Republicans, I don't know if we're going to be able to beat these Republicans in 2018. I mean, they're just so fearsome with their, offering to take away people's health care to give billionaires and billionaires tax cuts. They can't beat that.
Well, I mean,
right?
Listen, the Democrats cannot come out strongly in favor of single payer health care, because as a wise man once said, a wise political scientist once said, otherwise known as Maple Cocaine, I think his name is Dr. Cocaine. Dying early from preventable diseases is very popular in swing states. I think that's a very popular thing in swing states. There's nothing people in Ohio love more than dying of preventable illnesses. And so, coming out strongly in favor of single payer would be a death. It would be just death.
To me, that's an indictment of generations of politicians, of people leaving our society in disrepair, and our infrastructure matched by our social structures, in the ineptitude and the terribleness with which they're constructed. And so, I don't understand how we look at our politicians and we don't hold them responsible at all for leaving our population so ill-prepared to run a democracy.
Because every single person that really gets to talk to one of these politicians and actually get airtime is talked to by one of these fucking haircuts on TV who don't ask any tough questions. I mean, we have a systemic problem, and that systemic problem is the fact that all of the institutions that we value have been corrupted by capitalization. So now every single person who would be in a position of power to ask any of these politicians a question, like we've been talking about, put it into real terms. Are you in favor of 626,000 people dying over the next 10 years? Because that's what the AHCA does. None of them will do that. Not a single fucking one of them has the balls to do that, because, like Brandon said, the institutions behind them are not in favor of single payer, which is the only solution to that.
We know that there was the option on the table for the governor of California to sign a single payer bill. It was in front of him. The supermajority in California, Democratic governor, make single payer happen. That's the best way. That's the best way to resist Trump. Than Trump care. And again, I resist calling this bill Trump care, because I think that really erases how GOP this bill actually is. And positions it as something that is uniquely Trump, or the result of Trump being president. I think this bill would have looked exactly the same no matter what. If John Kasich was the president, if Jeb Bush was the president, this bill would have looked exactly the same.
Right, and
more or less.
And that gets back to my point about the haircuts, is the fact that, it was the Speaker of the House of California, Rendon, who decided to table it, even though that was the portion where, and he said because it doesn't have funding and it doesn't have a budget attached to it. And that's the part where it goes to the House for. I mean, that's exactly what they were supposed to do in the House, is work that out. And rather than do that, he tabled it, like you said, to fight single payer, or to fight AHCA. And not a single person in power and media asked him, what the hell are you doing? The best answer is single payer, and no one did.
And to Brandon's point, quickly, I was just going to say that, if you envision politicians' jobs as essentially selling corporations and billionaires' interests to the people, then what Trump is doing is he's just pressuring the politicians to do much more than they've ever thought or claimed that they were capable of. He's pushing them to push for legislation that's even more egregiously favoring the special interest that he's leaning towards, mainly himself, but then a couple billionaire friends and millionaire friends. He's just pushing it all even further than they would normally be able to take it, in the sense that they would make the argument, oh, we can't sell this, and that's what they're doing now with the healthcare plan that is actually more or less their creation anyway. But Trump's like, well, no, you got to actually come up with something.
Well, but the thing is, being able to sell it, right? I think that's a subsection of this idea of electability. Right, and we see this every time we talk about anything that's good, anything that's good in the world. And the conversation has shifted away from, okay, well, is this objectively good? Is healthcare a human right? Will it save people? Is healthcare a human right? Is single payer the objectively right way to go, as has been shown by a bunch of different, both by case studies around the world and by being supported by doctors' organizations, et cetera, et cetera. Is it the right way to go? Is Bernie Sanders the politician I agree with? Is Jeremy Corbyn the politician I agree with? And the conversation has shifted to, to be, well, do I think it will pass? It's like, is everyone, like, what are the chances of everyone else being in favor of this? And like, that's such like, that's a very what's what I'm looking for? It's a very not dangerous way to think when it comes to politics, but shallow. Like it turns politics. You know, there's a good article by David Graeber about this New Statesman. It turns politics into like a beauty pageant, of like or popularity contest, where like the goal of politics, people who are voting and people who are politicians, is not to stand for anything, but it's to guess where people want them to stand.
But it's like some weird twisted version, because like there's some vague threat of the AHCA passing with less than 20% public support, but with massive public support of with massive public support of some sort of single payer system or something like that, and Democrats with a 60-person majority, they barely got the ACA passed, just barely. And like we're with Republicans talking about stripping all of this away, doing all of this damage, and doing it with 50 votes, or threatening on the verge of passing, although I think it never really had a chance just because it was so unbelievably horrible. But they even put their name, they even let it come out. They let this be associated with the Republican Party at all.
This is the Republican Party. This is the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead right there.
Like here's the thing, and this is what I've been trying to say, is the fact of the matter is you don't run for things. You don't run on having passed things, especially as Democrats. You don't run on, hey, we're going to get single payer passed, saying, well, hey, we're going to, because here's really what they're doing, is they're focusing, at least with the AHCA, they're focusing on the next election. They're focusing on 2020. They're focusing on Donald Trump's hopeful re-election campaign. And the thing about that is that it's politically, it's more expedient for them to say, well, hey, 22 million of you lost your health care under this guy, so why don't you just vote for a Democrat? It's that thing that we've talked about over and over again, is that they want to let things get exponentially worse before they even try to begin doing something that's going to get better. And to talk to Richard's point, I'm 100% with you. They should have passed single payer in 2000, whatever it was, 2009, 2000. Yeah, okay. 2009. Like, they should have done it then. They had a supermajority in Congress, but again, Democrats don't want to pass things. They don't want to run on, hey, we've done these good things. That's why they've lost 1,000 seats. That's why they continue to lose seats while Obama was in president and popular. They continue to lose seats because they did not work hard enough. They didn't run on, well, we're doing these things for you. They're running on, well, we're timid. And they're running on being the adult in the room. And that's not a winning position. Republicans are going out, they're giving red meat to the base. They're telling these folks exactly what they want to hear. In some cases, in other cases, they're telling them exactly what they're afraid of. And they're using these kind of straw man arguments, saying, hey, guess what? I'm the big, strong dude here, but this little wimpy Democrat, they're not going to do anything to help you out. There's a fundamental issue with the way Democrats do politics to begin with, let alone the fact that they just don't stand for anything. They cannot pass anything because passing stuff is counterintuitive to what they want to have done.
Well, and they can't win. They need to just get out of the way, but I think you make the excellent point that they don't want to get out of the way because impeding the type of progress that they say they want is exactly what they're there for. But go ahead, John.
Yeah, that's because that's how they make money. Every single one of these people is backed by an army of little dudes who are making money off of running these campaigns. I mean, you look at Ossopp's campaign and the email people, they what was it?
Mothership?
What was the Mothership? Yeah, Mothership is now working for AstroTurf Stash. Like, you've got these people who are going from these campaigns to campaigns and making money. You don't want to jeopardize where a lot of this money is coming from, and that's why, when you see popular support behind legislation like the ACA or the single payer, they don't want to push that because that means that they're going to lose a lot of money. And it's not just money from the insurance companies; it's also Wall Street who's heavily invested in this. So you're going to lose money. A large section of the economy or let's say the economic elite is going to be against any form of single payer. And the Democrats are trying to play a brinksmanship game where they're going to say, well, we can't push something that would be popular and work. So let's see how bad it can get. That way we don't have to run for what's popular and will work.
I mean, Democrats are positioning themselves as being the one thing standing between us and certain doom. And they're pushing us towards a crisis management form of politics that we're largely existing within. So not only has politics become like this popularity contest where we're all trying to guess what everyone else is going to vote, and that's being colored by, mainstream media gaslighting, but it's also a situation where, you know, people are being admonished for thinking long term. Like people are being admonished for thinking not only about like the current future, you know, I'm sorry, the immediate future, but thinking about like, okay, well, 10 years from now, what do I want the world to look like? Like we're trapped in this cycle of like constantly trying to stave off the apocalypse. And you know, and you know, again, Trump might represent the apocalypse, but I think, you know, I stand by the point that we were going to get there one day anyway. Like I stand by that idea that, you know, eventually we're going to get to the apocalypse and it was going to be, you know, bad, and so we have to find a way to extricate ourselves from this cycle of like, okay, because let's be honest, like this whole thing with this whole theater about the Republicans not voting for the AHCA, a lot of that's to do with, you know, looking for specific handouts for their state. A lot of that's to do with hand wringing over the fact that this bill is 20% unpopular. Like, I'm sorry, it's only popular with 20% of the population because it's a death bill. Like it is a death bill, and frankly, if they don't find some way to obscure that, they might not be able to get the votes. Like the Republicans in the Senate, they want to vote for this. They want to vote for this bill. They do. Like, but they also want opioid, you know, money. They also want money for hospitals in Maine. They also want all these these little things. And more often than not, you know, and
what they need is they need something to be able to take home and be like, well, this is what I got you with that, and that's why you want to continue to vote for me, because some other senator wouldn't even have got you that, even though I'm really not in support of anything that you don't like in it. The only thing I really supported was this one thing you liked that we got for us. They want to kill you,
but they don't want to be punished for it. Yeah. They don't want to be punished for voting for it. It's really what it is.
Good politics. I mean, you could, anybody on this show, anybody at Progressive Army could go, anybody probably watching this YouTube channel could slaughter a Republican in an actual election that was fair. If you go in there, I mean, because you can, all you have to do is hammer home the hard numbers, the hard facts. This is what they voted for. This is what it did to you at the local level. This is what I'm going to do. This is what it will do to reverse those effects. I mean, Jesus, Kansas. There's nobody outside of political spheres like actually pay attention to what happened in Kansas, what happened in that Republican utopia, how far to shit literally everything went.
Hell, everyone's so focused on Russia. Look at the Russian economy. That was set up by Larry Summers and the IMF. Like the Harvard boys got a hold of that, turned it into a fucking libertarian dream paradise world. And look at it; it's the highest percentage of inequality in the world.
Performing poorly in general compared to Europe.
I just want to really two things, right? I want the Republican Party to have to wear this bill, and I don't want like the little bit of hand wringing over whether or not they're going to vote for it to be viewed as anything other than theater, and worrying about whether they will get elected or not. Like if they get reelected or not. Like if they could do these tax cuts and still get reelected, we wouldn't be having a conversation.
Nope.
Like, but you know, the cuts to Medicaid are brutal. Like the cuts to some of these services, it's going to leave a lot of their states people uninsured. Like this is the kind of bill that might cause Republicans some seats in the Senate. Some people their seats, some of the more vulnerable seats, like Ted Cruz. But this is not about their politics. This is not about the politics of the party. This is not about their personal morality. This is not about their view for the world. This is really just about like, can they keep their seats? And frankly, this fight, I don't think this fight's going to end. Even if this bill doesn't get through, they're going to try to push another version of it through. Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing versions of the AHCA for the next 4 years. This battle's going to be going on into perpetuity.
Like the repeal of the AHCA, we'll just get one every few weeks, basically, and except it won't actually end up anywhere.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be finding out for a long time. We're gonna be calling our senators, asking them not to kill us for a good long time. You know,
as long as they can keep it running, because it keeps us distracted and keeps us from focusing on the other issues that we need to be focused on, or like presenting alternatives like single payer. It was interesting. Orrin Hatch, when confronted with it, said if they didn't pass this, that we're just going to get socialized medicine, as if that was a bad thing. But
yeah,
like, so it seems as though like he's conceding to something, but to who? Is he just calling the ACA socialized medicine, which is very possible, or is he saying that that he's aware of the momentum on the ground for some sort of socialized solution?
Well, we know at Kamala Harris rally, the DSA was chanting single payer at Kamala Harris. Really,
yeah, and there was a whole bunch of people when I think it was Weigel or Stein tweeted that. A whole bunch of people were screaming at the DSA people about trying to silence a minority woman.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's frustrating, right? It's frustrating because there doesn't seem to be any way to win this fight. Organizing for single payer seems to be, people have been conditioned to just accept the scraps of the Democratic Party. And, we go back to the conversation well, either 600,000 people are going to die or 400,000 people are going to die. But people have been conditioned to believe that those are the only two choices, because the idea that 0 people die from preventable illnesses, which is a reality, and, not actually 0, but functionally 0 people die from it. But not only 0 people die from preventable illnesses, but 0 people go bankrupt from preventable illnesses, right? Or from medical treatment.
0 people lose their houses.
Yeah, that's a reality in most of the world. That's a reality. Most of the world, they don't understand the notion of pre-existing.
It's our Americentric view on everything. Yeah. We think that however it is in America must be the best it is in the world for everything. And because most people don't leave the country, because people don't actually experience other countries.
Well, what I was saying is Syria has single payer, so.
Yeah, I think every other, I know every other industrialized country has it. I think a lot of other countries do. But just real quick, how many countries that have gone to single payer have decided, oh shit, this doesn't work, and went back?
None of them that I know.
0.
Exactly.
None.
Exactly.
Because
hold up. One point to that, Brandon. Even the fucking Tories argued that the NHS is a good thing.
The Tories are for free. Well, at one point, we're for free public college education. Theresa May kind of shit all over that. But, literally, our hard left politicians in America are super hardcore conservatives, literally everywhere else.
Yep.
America, and you will, and this is just talking to friends from outside of the country. Even my Canadian friends think we're absolutely insane. And Justin Trudeau is a piece of shit.
Yes.
Justin Trudeau is a piece of shit. But holy fuck, are our liberal politicians conservative?